Dublin, and it's actually a beautiful day here today, lovely and sunny. And unfortunately, it isn't a sunny complexion for the global economy because despite the fact that Donald Trump had said around about 24 hours ago that the war was very close to ending and it was going to be wrapped up in maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks, he then did his address to the nation and things didn't quite come along as he said they would. So what he did say was that over the next 2 to 3 weeks, the war is going to intensify. So the attacks on Iran are going to get significantly worse. And he said that Iran would return to the Stone Age where they belong. So that indicates that there's going to be an increase in the fighting, an increase in targeting all of Iran's infrastructure. He didn't actually say in the address that he was going to take out the desalination plants, but certainly the electricity plants and some of the key things that are needed for the Iranian economy are right in target at the moment. And what that's done is send the markets plummeting again. So we've seen, he said his address was actually after the US markets had closed, so they didn't move officially. But overnight, we have seen the markets in Asia falling significantly, so more than 2-3%, that sort of range. And I think when we see all of the markets opening in Europe and the US, we're going to see at least a fall of 1, maybe 2%, possibly even further. And oil prices are now back up to around about $107 per barrel. And just to put that into perspective, as I've mentioned many times before, at the start of 2026, oil prices were at $60 per barrel. So even at $100, that's more than a 50% increase in a very short space of time. And the difference to what we saw previously when Russia invaded Ukraine was that the spike in oil prices was only for a very short period, for a matter of days. Whereas we've seen prices over $100 for weeks now. And every day that the oil price is above $100 is damaging to the global economy because, as we all know by now, oil feeds into the price of everything. It's not just gasoline and diesel and air fuel and everything else that you associate with transport and travel and vehicles. We're also talking about raw materials for a variety of different industries. We're talking about gas prices doubling in Europe since this conflict started. And that's not going to turn around very quickly because the damage that's been caused by some of the Iranian retaliatory attacks, where they've taken out 17% of Qatar's LNG capacity, not just for this week, for the next 5 years. That's going to keep prices elevated for a long time. And gas is used, natural gas is used to generate electricity in Europe. So the longer that this war goes on, the higher prices will be for a long period of time. And that's going to take profit out of a lot of companies' balance sheets. It's also going to mean that your pound and your dollar and your euro is not going to go as far because prices will go up. Inflation will be rising. And when inflation rises, as we know from simple economics, the way that central banks usually deal with inflation to bring it back down is to increase interest rates. Increasing interest rates discourages people from taking on debt. It discourages companies from taking on borrowing. Therefore, they don't invest into new facilities, expansion, more staff. So you have slower growth, and that means that the economy slows down. And then this becomes a really vicious circle because as we start to move to a slower global economy or even a global recession, then central banks would want to lower interest rates to encourage people to spend and to try to kickstart the economy. But if you've got high inflation and you lower interest rates, then that can actually fuel further inflation. Central banks could also increase the monetary supply like they did during the COVID pandemic, so printing more money in simple terms, putting more money into the economy. And if they do that, we could find ourselves in a global situation where we've got simultaneous inflation and low growth or no growth, and that is basically stagflation. And that's a really difficult cycle to break out of because your key tool for changing things, interest rates, has already been dampened because you can't really, it's not working at that point. So I think the overall summary of Donald Trump's speech yesterday was that the USA is really stuck in this war. They would like to extract themselves. I'm sure that a lot of people in the authorities in the US are saying, can we just close that war down and go back to what we were doing before, please? Can we just focus on growing the US economy? But a war, once you've started it, it's quite difficult to stop, particularly if you've got an opposition who isn't very happy. And Iran at the moment are extremely unhappy. And as we talked about before, the current authorities there, the Revolutionary Guard, are fighting for their lives, literally. So not just from a political point of view. And they know that Israel and the USA fundamentally would like to see change in the way that Iran is run. So they would like to see new leaders come in and have somebody in there who is friendly towards the US and maybe strike some oil deals and agree not to develop any more nuclear weapons if they have been, and all of those sorts of things. So the current leaders are not going to sign off on a deal where they're removed from power and then possibly all of them face prosecution. So they are going to fight tooth and nail until they don't have any other choice. So when Donald Trump says that over the next 2 to 3 weeks the war is going to intensify, I think what this means is that there's going to be a big push now. So Israel and the US are going to try to take out key strategic targets in Iran to basically get to the point where Iran has to surrender. Iran is not going to want to surrender, so it will only surrender if it doesn't have any other choice. And what it will do most likely in the meantime is to start targeting infrastructure in other countries surrounding Iran. So we've already seen the LNG facility in Qatar was hit. A number of tankers have been hit recently. So we saw one in Bahrain and one in Dubai. That potentially might happen further. And the stranglehold on the Strait of Hormuz is likely to strengthen. So it's really the key tool that Iran has to keep themselves in this war and at the negotiating table. But Iran has also said that they don't want to negotiate with the USA. So how do you get an end to a war if the opposition is saying we're not going to sign off on any deal? The only way is to basically obliterate them. And I think that's what Donald Trump is intending to do. But the knock-on consequence of that could be extremely bad for the global economy and for infrastructure in the Gulf region. So we could see further shortages in terms of the delivery of oil and gas and key raw materials like aluminium and helium and ammonium nitrate. So there are lots of different parts of the global economy that are now starting to suffer badly. And I think it's likely that over the next 2 to 3 weeks, things are going to get worse because this war is really going to intensify. So unfortunately, even though the markets 2 days ago got all excited when Donald Trump said we're very close to the end now, 2 to 3 weeks, the markets are always looking at the optimistic view. They are desperate for this war to end, and so we see the markets going up, stock markets rise, oil prices fall, and then reality sets in and everything goes back to where we were. And I don't think even the current state of the markets and the current state of oil prices truly reflects what is going on right now and the damage that this is causing to the global economy. So the longer it goes on, the worse it's going to be, the higher the chances of very slow growth or even a global recession happening in 2026. If this war carries on through the rest of April and goes on into May and June, this could be absolutely devastating. And let's not forget, we've got 5 countries actively involved in the war, but we've also got a multitude of other countries being affected by drone attacks and missile attacks. And every country in the world is affected by what's happening to oil prices and raw material prices. And this is just an absolute man-made disaster that didn't really have to happen. So I want to give you a quick update just to bring everybody back to reality that despite the fact that the markets bounced up a couple of days ago, they've now bounced back down again. They're likely to continue going down. Oil prices likely to continue going up until we get a full resolution. And there is no end in sight as it sits right now. So hopefully you found that useful, informative and interesting. Don't forget that I'm here in Dublin with Naz doing some really fun videos, really interesting, exciting stuff. We've been to some amazing restaurants and a few other quirky places that I think you're really going to like. It's a lot of fun, but we need your help. If you could really help support us, I'd appreciate that a lot. We're at the start of our journey. We've only got about 500 subscribers. So if you could click the link at the end of this video, I'll put up the link to take you through to our first real video. It's Naz's first trip to Wetherspoons. It's quite an interesting one. It's quite fun. I think you'll enjoy it. Please have a watch of that video because we need some watch hours. Please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. Watch it multiple times if you like. That would really help us out. But yeah, that would be fantastic if you can do that. Please give me a thumbs up for this video. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I will see you again very soon.